Joining me now from New York City, founder of Geltrude and Company, Dan Geltrude. Dan, thank you so much for joining me. Dan, what a rude surprise here from the IRS, a $16,000 tax bill. That's pretty incredible, but also is it like no good deed goes unpunished, right? So how can people avoid this?
So it seems that way, but Stephanie, I happen to disagree with the IRS's position in this particular case based upon the facts that I know. These fundraising platforms are actually quite common, where people go online, a GoFundMe or Facebook, whatever the case is, and they raise money for a charitable cause. Now, the key here is there's two parts. One, what was the intent of the campaign organizer? And two, were there any goods or services exchanged? So in this case, you have a teacher who was buying groceries for people impacted by COVID. There's the intent. And there was no exchange of goods or services. He was receiving money and going out and buying groceries. Therefore, this should be considered a gift and there would be no tax due. I think ultimately, if he fights it and he can provide support that he spent the money on groceries and so on to help people related to the COVID struggle, he wins.
I hear you. It was kind of a surprise that a fundraiser like this would end up with somebody being, hit with a $16,000 tax bill. That's crazy. And it is really tragic just because we've been dealing with the pandemic and he's just trying to help people. So I'm glad that you think that there's a case here that he can fight. But also, don't you think that's going to cost him money too? Like to fight something like this takes time and energy and money.
Sure it is. Well, first of all, the burden of proof is on him, Stephanie. So he's got to go and collect all the receipts and show how he spent all the money for this charitable purpose. The second thing is, yes, he probably needs representation. So it is going to cost him money. Now, the IRS, to their side of the coin here is they received a 1099-K, which triggers them to do a match between what was reported and what's on the tax return. They had the mismatch, so it's an automatic tax that gets generated. I think this can get resolved, hopefully, without a lot of cost to this person who was doing a good thing.
Yeah, hopefully. I want to shift gears here and ask you about this. So stock investors have been dissecting Biden's capital gains tax hike proposal. What are they saying right now?
Well, what they're saying is, and what everybody should know, whatever you tax, you're going to get less of. So if you are going to tax people's investments, you are going to disincentivize people from making investments. Now, with this tax increase, let's break this down. Currently, we're at 20% for capital gains. Biden wants to bring that up to 39.6, and that could even go higher, up to 43.4% in the case of inputting Obamacare tax on top of that. That will make it the highest capital gains rate in the world. So you tell me, are people going to want to buy and sell investments? No. And in fact, what they're going to do, Stephanie, is if this goes into effect in 2022, you will see a huge sell-off because people have a lot of gains in 2021, and it will have a significant impact on the value of the stock market.
Yeah. Again, they've just been hitting us with new tax proposals every other week to pay for their crazy $1 trillion plans. It just never ends. So definitely pretty spooky. Now, I wanted to ask you about Bitcoin. We talk about Bitcoin a lot on the show. I don't own any Bitcoins. I don't own any digital currency, but it's been a pretty wild week for Bitcoin. So is this concerning? Are you into Bitcoin? Is this something that you buy into?
Actually, I do not, but I follow it pretty carefully. And the reason that I don't have the stomach for it, it's just too volatile for me. I'm not the type of guy that can take the up and down constantly. Look, it wasn't long ago that Bitcoin was over $63,000. Now it's under 50. So in a short period of time to lose that much value, I don't have the stomach for that or the sea legs. There's also a lot of pressure on Bitcoin or people who hold Bitcoin to properly report their taxes. So now they're feeling that pressure. And also with these new capital gains that are being proposed, those taxes, I think we were seeing somewhat of a sell-off, and that's why we had a significant drop over the last week or so.
Yeah, it is volatile. So it was at 63, and then it dropped down to 54. It dropped down a little bit lower than that. So it is all over the place, and I don't blame you. I don't have the stomach for it either. It seems like gambling to me, and I'm not against it. I just don't have the time or energy to put into anything like that at the moment. But I love to talk about it, and I like to hear what people say about it. But I remember the predictions not too long ago. They were saying it was going to hit like $250,000 per Bitcoin. So it'll be interesting if it actually makes it that far. Now, this story in the news really resonated with me. So Americans are updating their closets, and so there's been strong sales retail-wise. I'd say I've been buying a lot of sweatpants and casual clothes during this pandemic because it was stuff I just didn't really have a lot of because I was used to working in offices and being in and out of the Capitol and Washington, D.C. It was pretty unacceptable to run around in gym clothes and sweatpants out there, but things have changed. So this is interesting, but people are buying actual work clothes now, it sounds like, and actual day-to-day stuff, not just sweatpants.
Yeah, and let's face it, there's a lot of us out there over the past year where clothes simply don't fit. So the sweatpants were the best solution. But although you would expect that the sale of clothing to be on the rise like so many other things in retail because people are getting back out, I think there's going to be a permanent change, Stephanie, to the way people dress. People have become very comfortable in the way they were dressing over the past year. So I don't necessarily think from a man's standpoint that suits are going to be flying off the racks right now because I think, we're moving away from a lot of formal dress code. However, there's no question about that retail for clothing is going to go up. We're not quite where we need to be, but as people go out, they're going to want to have the appropriate clothes to wear.
Yeah, well, and it's great to hear that retail is doing well and that we're starting to see a little bit of activity because it's been tough during this pandemic. Just talking about the segment, though, I just got a little bit triggered. It started reminding me of CNN Brian Stelter working from home in his boxers, and he had somebody take a picture of him in front of his computer screen. He didn't even bother to wear sweatpants. Kind of gross. Anyways, Dan, I digress. I'll leave it here. Thank you.
I have my pants on, Stephanie, just
Thank
so you know.
We appreciate that. Okay, thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.
You.